Hey, this is John, and welcome to The Bold Authentic Life. This is a channel where I talk about all things related to mental, social, spiritual, and emotional health. For me, living boldly and authentically means being somebody that does the best they can and shows up in the best way possible by being honest, by being genuine, and graceful in their approach to all of their relationships. It's about having charisma and having power, but not abusing it and not using it to drag anyone down, but only, to build yourself up and to continually grow. And this is something that I'm very passionate about. The topic of mental health and mindfulness is something that I've had the opportunity to do a lot of work with and a lot of research with. And so this channel is meant for me to share with you a lot of the tools that I've learned, and hopefully even hear some things from you and to get some feedback and to learn from other people who could very well possibly know way more than I do. So I want to thank you all for watching and viewing this, because this is my very first video, and I am not only excited about that, I'm also very nervous. So, with that being said, let me tell you about what I have for you today. Today, I wanted to talk about red flags in everyday relationships. Why I wanted to do this? Well, it's something that we can all relate to, and whether we've experienced those ourselves or whether we know somebody who has red flags, or guess what, if we are somebody who has some of those red flags, none of us are perfect. This is a normal thing that a lot of people deal with, right? And what it indicates is social skills or behavior patterns, or maybe even past hurts that aren't developed or healed or processed, and they manifest in behaviors and that affect other people, mostly in a negative way, ways that might involve hurting them. And those are red flags, and when we see those in other people, naturally what we want to do is we want to avoid them. Now, normally I think it's the common response when we see behavior that is possibly threatening, and it's the common response to want to go the other way, right? But sometimes that's not always an option, right? Sometimes it's not that big a deal, but it's still somebody that we love, and we prefer if they didn't treat us a certain way or behave a certain way. And sometimes maybe running away isn't the best option. Maybe there are better ways to show up, especially if we're going to be, somebody that tries to be bold and authentic. And I went out and I did a little survey from friends, family, and a couple of very helpful strangers. And they shared with me a lot of what they think are red flags that they experience in their everyday lives. And I wanted to go over some examples of red flags that we might experience in our everyday life, and some ways that we can handle them with the people that we know and love. First example that I have listed is when people are disrespectful of your time. Okay, this was something that a lot of people have issues with. So what does that mean? That means people showing up late to things that are important to us. That means people trying to dictate how we spend our time, right? And that happens a lot more so than you think. If you don't actually fight for your time and say, hey, this is this is how I spend my time. It's important to me that I go do this, and people will think that you don't have anything to do, and they'll think that they have the right to tell you how to do it. For example, work, right? This happens all the time. Listen, time is one of those things that if you spend it, you're never getting it back. If it's work telling you, hey, you shouldn't be spending time with your family, spend time doing work, hey, that's work. That's how it is in America today. And that's also pretty toxic. Just a hard look at that. So what are ways that we can handle that? Simple. We can establish boundaries. We can let people know what's important to us and what we can miss from our schedule and what we can't miss from our schedule. And more often than not, what I found is that people are very reasonable if you just express to them, where your priorities are and what you need to be doing with your time. People are more than willing to be like, okay, yeah, like I understand that makes sense. A lot of employers, actually will, make sure that you're seeing your family. They'll actually make sure that like, hey, like, yeah, you take care of that thing. Yeah, make sure you're okay in your personal life. A lot of employers are more than reasonable about those kinds of things, so long as you just let them know. The second red flag that I have for you is when somebody is constantly negatively interpreting situations. What I mean by that is when you have somebody who is, they're always seeing everything as an offense, right? Everyone's always out to get them. Everyone's, always, gossiping about them or demeaning to them or being passive aggressive. And where this comes from is, more than likely social anxiety. And that could be caused by a number of things, right? For me, in my experience, being around, people that are very passive aggressive, people that, are always trying to say negative or hurtful things to you, it's very easy to always construe, negative comments out of compliments just because, you've spent a lot of time normalizing negativity, you normalizing put downs, normalizing, passive aggressive, behavior. And so that's usually where a lot of this manifests in somebody else, and it comes from a place of hurt and insecurity. And when people do that, it's a red flag. And if you're going to be around them and they're always constantly negatively interpreting whatever you have to say, negatively interpreting whatever anybody says to them, and everything is always an offense, this is something that, if this person is your loved one and you want to bring it up with them, the best way to do it is to just mention it when it happens and say, hey, how come that's your understanding of a certain situation? Why is that? Brene Brown, who is a very well-known and very talented psychologist and author, encourages people to get curious and to actually, give somebody the space to explore, like, hey, why is that your response? Where does that come from? Because when you do that, you actually demonstrate like firsthand what empathy is like and how willing you are to listen. And then you also show somebody the importance of empathy, and you demonstrate to them like, hey, like, you spend time to get to know why they're behaving a certain way. And then you also teach them that, oh, like maybe I should spend some time getting to know why I behave this way and why somebody else might be saying something to me or why they might not be, And it's a great way to set a boundary and show that, you don't negatively interpret things, but you can always positively interpret them. So the third red flag that I wanted to bring up is when somebody uses guilt tripping to manipulate you. And this is something that, it's basically become so well known that, yeah, people have the phrase a guilt trip. They put you on a guilt trip in order to get you to do something. And it's not exactly something that, you should normalize in your life or think that is okay. One of the biggest examples that I'm sure a lot of people can experience is when somebody's trying to break up with their partner, and their partner says, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself, right? And that immediately puts you in a situation where, you can either stay with them and, give them what they want, but you'll never be happy, or you can just go for what you want, and then they make you feel like, the price of that is their life, that you're killing them just so that you can be happy. And it's a trap. There's, no perceivable way out of that. When in reality there is, but that is just, an extreme example of somebody using emotional manipulation to make you feel guilty into doing something. And to be honest, you should never do something because you feel guilty, because you feel like you owe somebody something. Do something because you genuinely believe in it. Do something because you love doing it, because you want to do it, because you choose to do it, right? Nobody else can make you, do something like that. You have to choose to do it. And, if you want my advice on how to handle a situation that I just, talked about the suicide, it's very simple. You be rational with that person who is trying to take their own life, and you tell them, hey, try to get confirmation, right? Hey, if I leave, like, do you have a plan to hurt yourself? Are you going to kill yourself? And if they say yes, then you just say, hey, I'm willing to call your friends, and I'm willing to call, your family, and I'm willing to call 911 in order to get you help. And I'm going to do that because, it's very alarming that you're saying something like that. But the last thing you want to do is to take it upon yourself and make it your personal responsibility to help somebody when they're in a state like that. And at any time that somebody's trying to guilt you into doing something in order to help them, the last thing you want to do is to make it your responsibility to be guilty enough to help them, because that comes from a place where you're trying to please somebody else, and where you need to come from a place where you're abundant and you have a wealth of kindness and gratitude and gracefulness. And the easiest way to demonstrate that is to back off and to say, hey, like, there's nothing that I can do for you, but I can, call somebody who can help you. I can, come up with, some other solution. But the last thing you want to do is, something that you genuinely don't want to do because you feel bad. It's not going to make you happy, and it's not going to be good for that person, no matter, how much they want it. So the fourth thing I have is gossip. Now, gossip is something that we all do. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'll find myself gossiping sometimes here and there, but it's never a good thing, and it's never something to be proud of, right? None of us are perfect. We all do it. I get it. But, what I mean by gossip is, not inquiring about somebody else, right? Like, we all inquire about other people and say, hey, what's so-and-so doing? What are they up to? What's new in their life? I haven't seen them in forever. And just, knowing the details, like, that's not gossip. Gossip is when you criticize somebody or you talk about them in a negative way, and then, when they're not around, and you decide how you're going to treat them, how you're going to think of them, how you're going to judge them, and you never give them a chance to explain themselves. You never make them a part of it. And this is very toxic because, it poisons somebody's, respect and their reputation and their dignity without ever giving them a chance to, to demonstrate who they are. It's full of falsehood. And, like, let's be honest, right? When somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I love to gossip, right? Which I've had plenty of people tell me that. Like, I don't know what else to think other than, this person's telling me that they say one thing to my face and they're absolutely okay with going off somewhere else and saying a whole bunch of negative things about me, and then laughing about it and deciding that I'm a loser and then just walking away. Like, if they absolutely had the chance to do that about me and they could get something out of doing that, they absolutely would. That's what it tells me when somebody says, I love to gossip. My approach when people say that to me, or there are people who gossip in my life, is to just tell them what I believe about gossip, which is exactly what I just told you, is that, all it tells me is that you're coming up to me and telling me that I can't trust you. And, that's unfortunate because, I think highly of a lot of people who have actually told me that. And, all I want to say to them is that, like, dude, like, why are you doing that? You're just telling me that I can't trust you when I actually, really like you. I actually really respect you. So what's the deal? You just call them out on that, because gossip is poison. Nobody needs that. The fifth thing that I want to share about, and this is something that a lot of people had different opinions about, and so I'm excited to talk about it just because it's so controversial, right? But here's my take on it. So, pushy beliefs, right? Pushy beliefs to me are, that's when somebody has a certain point of view about the world, right? It can be politics, it can be religion, it could be, Marvel Comics versus DC Comics, right? Whatever it is, when somebody has a certain point of view, and they talk about those point of views to other people, but they do it in a way where they're not okay with you if you don't share their point of view, right? So I want to be perfectly clear. Sharing your opinion, having your own voice in the world, and speaking up and letting it be known, that is something that everyone should do. That's something that we all have, and it's never wrong to be able to just speak up for yourself. And so talking about your political beliefs, talking about your faith, talking about just how you view the world, you have a right to that, and you should absolutely share it. But when you share those beliefs, and they come with the understanding that, hey, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're a piece of dirt, and I want nothing to do with you, and I'm going to judge you, and I'm going to treat you differently, and I'm going to think that you're an idiot, then that's a red flag, right? When you meet people who do that, they're very passionate people, but they're also people that just, they get caught up on things that don't matter. Because in my experience, it's about how you treat other people more so than it is about what you believe. And people who believe in the noblest things in my life have, treated other people extremely poorly. The best thing that you can do when you're sharing your beliefs is to not get attached to the outcome. So if you're debating politics, look, don't talk about politics with the mindset of trying to convert somebody to your political beliefs. If you're talking about religion, don't talk to them with the mentality where you're locked in, and you're constantly saying, look, this person doesn't start believing in my religion, then, this conversation was a waste of time. Like, no, like it's a conversation where you're talking about what you believe and what you're passionate about and what you care about. And that's all it is. Everyone's allowed to do it. Now, if somebody in your life is very pushy with you about their beliefs, you just have to level with them and be real, and communicate to them that, what you observe, and say, hey, it feels like you treat me differently if I don't believe, what you believe. And let it be known. Because more often than not, when you say something like that, the other person's going to be on the back foot and just be like, no, that's not the case. I just want to share, what I'm thinking. And if they do treat you differently, like, hey, it's at the end of the day, there's a lot of power in walking away. Everyone, has a voice, and everyone should be sharing what they think about and what they believe and what they're passionate about. And it's something, we're all here to learn from each other. So, take it with a grain of salt. Everyone's allowed to have their opinion, but no one's allowed to treat you differently just because, you don't share their opinion. So those 5 red flags are the most noted of all the ones that I received when I went out and actually asked people in my life about it. And I wanted to share those on YouTube with you guys and give you my thoughts on what they mean and how best to approach them. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to disagree with me, or you want to give me even more elaboration on them, feel free to share in the comment section below. I want to thank you all for watching my video, and make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. I would love to share with you more content. I've got a lot more of it coming in the future. Tune in next time. I think I'm going to be doing a video about depression next time, and anxiety, and great strategies and tips on how to handle that. So stay tuned. I'm going to have that out for you. Once again, thank you for watching my video. This is John at The Bold and Authentic Life.